Hello and welcome to my channel, CaitMakes, the channel where I make things. Today I am making my dream little black dress. I am so excited about this pattern. It is absolutely the moment. It is the vibe right now. The world at the moment is obsessed with the drop waist, which I am very excited about. My first video I ever made was on a drop waist dress. I love this shape. I think that you guys are just going to love this pattern. I am using the Mau Patterns Loriana dress. On the note of this pattern, I actually have a 25% off discount code for you, which I am so excited to be able to offer you. So if you'd also love to make this dress, you can have 25% off with my code CaitMakes. I'll put that here and I'll make sure to link everything down below. A big thank you to Mau Patterns and Sewing Partner for partnering with me on this video. I think that you guys will love Mau Patterns. They have such a feminine, sophisticated style. It definitely goes with how I like to dress, and you can buy them on Sewing Partner. Sewing Partner is a really unique marketplace. I honestly did not know this before working with them, but now I am obsessed. If you've been here before, you know that I am a self-taught sewist. I learned primarily from YouTube and just teaching myself, and I'm always looking for ways to learn more about sewing to enhance my skills. And while it's really easy to find, patterns and videos showing you how to make a specific dress, sometimes those base knowledge sewing things that people who went to school for this or people who were taught by someone who really knows what they're doing, some of that knowledge is kind of harder to get your hands on. So I was so excited that they offer a really unique service called Sewing Mentorship, where they'll help you along on the process. It's a really incredible tool. I am so excited to use it on this pattern and then just moving forward in my sewing journey. Again, I'll link everything down below, and I'm sure I'll talk about it throughout the video because I fully plan on taking advantage of these sources. Now let's get into what I plan to do with this pattern, the fabric I'm going to use, the design idea, all that stuff. I think there are so many things you could do with this design to make it fit so many different occasions. First of all, I think it would make such a cute bridal dress if you did this in any sort of white fabric. There's so many things you could do to make it very bridal that would be perfect. The other idea I immediately had was a prom dress. I think you could make this into such a cute prom look. I feel like having a really pretty satin fabric up top and then a really sparkly tulle skirt or something would be so cute for prom. But as you may have guessed, both bridal and prom do not really fit my life where I'm at. So what I'm going with, as I've already said, is making my dream little black dress. This is something that every wardrobe needs and something that mine is very much lacking. And it's been on my list to make since I started sewing, and I don't know why I haven't gotten to it yet. The pattern recommends using a satin and poplin fabric. However, I have a few black velvet looks that I have just been really wanting to replicate. I came across this shirt and was absolutely in love with everything about it. Here are a couple dresses also that I've had on my Pinterest board forever and that I just love the look of. And I feel like those go perfectly with this design, with this pattern. And I'm finally going to be able to have my own version of these, which I am so excited about. This is primarily going to be a more formal dress, but I do think that the velvet makes it a little bit more able to be worn semi-casually than if I had done a shinier satin or something. The thing I like about this also is that I feel like I always have some fancier events in the winter time and around Christmas, and velvet is just perfect for that. I think I can wear this in any season, especially because it's short, but I also think that it will be great for the winter. So that just gives it even more chance to be worn. So now that we've discussed the plan, I hope that you like the look of it. And now let's get into actually making this dress. Alright, so I officially have all of my pattern pieces cut out of my main fabric. The fabric recommendations for this pattern are to use a sateen or poplin, something that is non-stretch. So that is what you should do. However, the only velvet that I could find does have some stretch. So to get that kind of stiffness that a sateen or a poplin would have, especially for the skirt part, I need to add interfacing to all of my pieces. Now, no matter what in the pattern, they have you add interfacing to all the bodice pieces, but I'm also going to be adding it to my skirt pieces. I really want it to have some structure to be able to give it that fullness. And this, as you can see, has a really flimsy drape, so I really want to give it some more structure. So I bought some featherweight interfacing, and I am going to be doing that on the back of all of my skirt pieces. This is the front piece, and then I have a back piece as well. So it's going to take quite a bit of interfacing. I'm going to be using a heavier weight. I think I have a medium weight for the bodice. I am going to be very careful as I do this because materials like velvet don't love to be ironed. So actually, with that said, I'm going to do a little test strip on one of my scrap pieces and just make sure I have my iron at like the perfect temperature so that I don't ruin this very pretty fabric. I'm going to be standing at this ironing board for a while, I think, because as you can see, there are quite a few pieces to this. Okay, so quick update. I did do a little test swatch and it's perfect. It was not bothered at all. So in case for some reason you're going to do something similar, I have mine set on like medium heat, and then I do use the like steam function throughout when I'm doing interfacing. It didn't damage the velvet at all, so I'm very happy that that's going to work because I was definitely counting on that not being a problem. Yay, that works. Now I'm going to do that to the entire skirt. Pattern is going to be really fun to watch come together. I'm so glad that now I'm done with the boring ironing bits and now I can get into some real sewing, which is always more fun. So yay, we are done at the ironing board. Let's move on to the sewing machine. Okay, so I have the front bodice panels put together here and it's already starting to take shape and I love it. I love it! I love the neckline of this. I think I'm going to be obsessed with this dress. Not to get ahead of myself, but I'm super excited about this pattern. Now I want to give a quick think to how I'm going to do the boning. So in the instructions, they use boning that you can sew through. I have this metal boning, which I really want to use in this. I know that it will last forever. It's, you know, not plastic. There's just a lot of things that I prefer about this rather than the sew through boning. But I do have to make some modification to this. Something that's really interesting about this pattern and I thought was super clever. Basically, they're using the seam allowance to attach the sew and boning to the bodice, and that way there aren't any visible seams on the outside, which I think is super cool. So I want to do the same thing, but I'm going to have to make channels. Typically, when I have made channels, you still have those seams on the outside. But my plan is to use their trick and just attach these little strips that I made to the seam allowance. I did do a quick test. I sewed the seam allowance together, which I'm going to be unpicking, but maybe just as an alternative option. I sewed the seam allowance together, which made a little channel, and I slipped the boning through, and this does work. The issue being that it does add quite a bit of thickness, if you can tell, which is kind of what I thought I would do, but I was just sort of curious. I was in the mood to test things. But yeah, it definitely adds some bulk. So I'm not going to do it that way, but that is also an option. So now I'm going to go ahead and try this method. I will also note that I was a little bit intimidated by the shape of these panels because I haven't done one that looks like this before, and I was a little worried about like, what does one do with this? But it makes sense once you sew it, just trust the process, and it makes that really pretty steep shape. So don't get intimidated by these kind of funky looking pattern pieces like I did. It totally works out. So far, it is seeming very true to size, very true to my measurements, which is just great. Love that for me. So, okay, moving on. Can't wait to keep putting this together. So then they will all end up looking like that. I am going to just double check quickly and slip one of the pieces of boning through, make sure that there aren't any issues. Yeah, I'm so glad that that totally works. And then of course there are still no extra seams on the outside. So yeah, still keeping the integrity of their original design, which I really like. Okay, so since I'm using metal boning, I do have to trim it down. For the first 2 seams, they were actually the perfect height, but now for all the rest of them, I'm going to have to trim them down. So to do that, I have, I believe, some wire cutters here, and basically I'm just going to trim it down to wherever I need it. In order for me to do this with my hand strength, I'm not sure if a stronger tool or a stronger person cut this in one go, but for me, I am just making sure to only get one piece of metal at a time, so like focus on one of these circles to cut at a time. And it isn't too hard, not too bad. I want it long enough so that it is covering as much of the seam as possible, but I want a couple centimeters of space on the top and bottom so that I never sew over this. If anything, better to be a little bit too short than too long. I still have to do quite a bit of sewing on this top seam, and then obviously the skirt is going to attach to the bottom too. If you're not using boning that you can sew over, just make sure that you're leaving yourself plenty of space so that you don't accidentally break a needle or something and sew over this metal piece. Hopefully you could see that okay. Basically, I just do one cut on one side, one cut on the other, and then it seems to separate just fine. I did buy these off of Amazon, and I was under the impression that I would be able to take this cap off and reuse it on a new area. However, I cannot get this off. I did try to like cut into it and everything and see. It would take a lot of work to get this off. So that is a slight problem. I'm going to be putting the rougher edges towards the top. Ideally, you want to have caps that can go on the top of each end. And yeah, I thought I had that covered, but apparently not. I officially have the back pieces together. I have all of the boning channels done and the boning cut and placed inside each of the channels. The top is done also, so now my next step is to connect the front and back pieces. Okay, so we have the front piece. I'm going to flip over. This is kind of silly. I thought about redoing it, but it's just going to get covered up by the lining anyway, so I'm leaving it. So I have the bodice portion here, and then I want to connect the 2 back pieces at the side seams. So I'm just going to be sewing along here and here. Okay, so I just did something kind of silly. I was trying to serge the side seam of the back skirt, which is the next step in this pattern. I noticed that my interfacing and my main fabric had kind of come unglued a little bit, which means that I need to iron it again and make sure that it's really stuck on. But instead of doing that, I decided to just go ahead and try serging it and like holding it in place. And that was a bad idea because now, if you can see, there is wrinkling happening here because basically the velvet fabric is being pushed this way, whereas the interfacing stayed in the place that it should be. So there would just be a ton of like puckering if I continued to serge, so I stopped. This is actually something I've been really afraid of because if you've been on my channel before, you know that I haven't been serging for very long, only a couple months. I'm pretty new to the serger, and looking at this seam, I'm thinking this looks extremely difficult to unpick, or at least very time consuming. Luckily, I just watched a super helpful video by Sewing Partner that's 7 professional sewing tips. I watched the video and was thinking that so many of those tips I did not know myself and found them super helpful. And now I have the perfect example of using one of those, which I don't remember what tip it was, but it was towards the beginning of the video, but it taught you how to unpick this quickly. So I'm going to share it with you also. I did pull up the video again, so I've got it here for reference. But basically all you have to do, instead of like unpicking every single seam here, is just to find the 2 straight seams, and you unpick those and then pull them out one at a time. So I just learned that from that video, and now I'm going to try it out on this, and we'll see how it works in true real life application. Okay, so we find the 2 straight seams, which is this one. I wonder if I should like trim this first. Okay, so this one, which is a straight seam, and then the other one would be this. Okay, and then it says to pull these one at a time, and then the whole thing should come out. Oh my gosh. That is so satisfying. It's totally free. Wow. I'm so pleased with that. That's such a good tip. So fabulous. I'm going to iron this again and get it to stick back together, and then I will go back to my serger. But yeah, that was so easy and so helpful and took so much less time than I thought it would. Cool. So make sure to check out Sewing Partner's 7 sewing tips video. I found it super helpful. If you're a beginner especially, check this video out, but either way, I think you guys will find it useful. All right, I have now successfully serged the side seams of the front and back skirt. And now I just need to attach them all together. It's a lot of fabric here, and I also have it interfaced, so I have to be kind of delicate with it. Until all the edges have some sort of seam, it can keep coming loose, like you just saw earlier. So I've had to repress a few bits, and I'll probably have to kind of keep doing that just because it's so much fabric, so I kind of have to fold it and things while it's waiting to be sewn. Yeah, I'm going to get the skirt all attached, and I will have one very, very long piece of fabric that is going to become the very cute skirt for this dress. So last night I finished up attaching the skirt to the bodice. It's really looking like a dress now, and I love it. I'll show you maybe on the inside, since the camera really doesn't like how dark this fabric is compared to my skin. So I'm so glad that I decided to do the interfacing on the skirt. It's really giving it that like shape that I wanted. I do want to note that this pattern is rated as difficulty advanced. I do not consider myself an advanced sewist, but it's really been going well so far. I don't think that it's difficult in the sense that it's like new things I haven't done before. It's more that there's just a really high level attention to detail, which I really, really like. Something that I think I didn't point out is that you also reinforce like all the edges and everything. Like there's just a lot of detail that's going into this dress that I think is just going to make it that much nicer. Although I was a little nervous about that difficulty rating, so far so good. I still have to do the lining and the sleeves and everything. We'll see if the difficulty goes up in that regard, but I really haven't reached any areas where I wasn't sure what to do or where I thought anything was confusing. It's really just highly detailed, and it's taking me a lot of time because of that, but I wouldn't say that the actual like skills involved are difficult. So in case you're thinking about doing this same one, that's my take on it so far. The next step on the list is to serge this inner bit here, which is another step that I wouldn't usually do or would have serged each individual piece before. This is definitely much more efficient, so love that. Filling up with my second iced coffee of the day because we have officially reached the point where I need to do the lining. And I have been avoiding the lining because it's just doing the same thing that you've already done over again, but in a less exciting way. Comment down below if you also hate doing lining. that said, I love the finished results of lining my dress. I'm just using a fabric that has been hiding away in my stash for a long time. I got this for like $3 a yard at a local sewing shop. They had like a big bin of fabrics and this was in there, so I don't really know the contents of it. It's some sort of blend. It has a bit of a sheen to it, but it's really, really soft. I had intentions of using this as an outer fabric at some point, but I've decided to sacrifice it to the lining for this one because I just think that this will be so comfortable on the inside. Yeah, I'm going to stop procrastinating now. Right after like 2 more sips. Okay, really though, stop procrastinating. Fifth time's a charm. I'm gonna stop procrastinating now. Time to sew the lining. Yeah. So I have finished sewing the entire lining for this. Now I need to attach it to the dress. So didn't want to bring you along for the lining bit because you've already seen all of that. The only difference is that there is a little facing part that you add onto the top. But yeah, this video is already going to be long, so not going to bring you along on every little step here. But now I'm going to put right sides together and pin this all along the dress. Well, please enjoy me having a band-aid on my finger for the rest of this video because I just cut into my finger with my scissors like an idiot. Oh my gosh, I was like cutting towards my hand, which is always a bad idea, and I just like snipped. I have like a little V-shaped cut in my finger now because I just snipped straight into my finger on accident. What I was doing is I was just trimming down like the bulk in between the like facing and lining and the top, just so that I can get a nice clean folded over look. But yeah, be warned, do not cut towards your hand. Always a bad idea. Okay, moving on. I'm doing the gathering stitches on my lining skirt pieces, and the dreaded sewing with an empty bobbin just happened. Only made it a couple stitches without noticing that it was out, but now I'm gonna reload it really fast and finish up these gathering stitches. Okay, we are on the very final steps of this dress. The last thing I have to do is attach the sleeves. And I realized that I haven't shown you guys the sewing mentorship program yet from Sewing Partner. I believe I mentioned it briefly earlier in the video, but basically it is a completely free service that Sewing Partner offers. Once you buy one of their patterns, you are able to email in 7 days a week completely for free, and they'll have a professional help you with whatever problem or question that you have, which I think is an incredible service. The idea of being able to speak to a real person and have them communicate with you and maybe even go back and forth about a problem is so nice, and to get it completely for free just for buying a pattern, which I would do anyway, is super cool. So that being said, I have not had any questions or issues so far on this process. The instructions for this Loriana dress are really great. They have pictures and written instructions, and it's just been smooth sailing. But I really wanted to test this feature and show you guys firsthand. So I've had people comment in, and I've also had friends who've tried to sew that have had this same issue, and then I also remember being intimidated by it when I first started sewing. So I'm going to send in a question about putting in a sleeve, because I know that that can be intimidating, especially once you see words like arm sky and ease. I won't lie to you, I still don't fully understand what those things are. I have figured out how to do armholes from like trial and error, basically. This would have been a really helpful service for me to be able to write in and ask. So we're gonna test that out today, see what they say, see what they come back with, and that way you can get an idea if you use a service, if you have like a random question to type in, what would happen. So, okay, so I'm just going to write in, hi there, I recently purchased the Loriana dress. I have Mal patterns. Could you please advise me on the best way to insert a sleeve, particularly one with pleats in it? Thanks so much for your assistance, Caitlin. And I signed it CaitMakes as well. And let's see what they come back with. I sent my question in June 12th, kind of late at night after business hours. I received a response on Thursday, June 13th, and it said, "Hello, Caitlin. I will be happy to assist you with this case. Inserting the sleeves just seems complicated. You just need to learn one tip. If you're sewing the Loriana dress, first of all, form the pleats along the sleeve cap and make a short stitch line just to fix them. So, like a basting stitch. It will make inserting easier." That is very true. Then insert the sleeve into the arm sky, which is just, the armhole on the bodice, and match the notches. And here is the main thing to get a smooth finish. Place the arm sky edge under the sleeve cup edge and bend around your finger while basting. So that makes a lot of sense to me. If you try and do it when it's laying flat, it's not going to work as well as if you hold it and kind of bend it around your finger, you get some of that natural curve. So I think that's great advice. That's definitely the advice that I wouldn't know how to explain like that, but that's what I do when I've had it work successfully. Or here's the simplest technique to insert the sleeve. Stitch 2 parallel stitch lines without a back stitch. Pin the seam right sides together, matching the notches. Pull up the machine basted thread to fit the shorter side, which is the arm sky. Baste, stitch carefully. You should get a smooth seam without puckers or gathers. After inserting the sleeve, remove easing stitches. If you have any further questions, I'll be happy to help. Have a wonderful day, your sewing partner. I just gave them a thank you back. I thought that this was super clear. I didn't have any further questions, but you are speaking to a real person, so you could go back and forth if you have any questions about what they said. I think as a beginner, especially knowing that you have someone to ask if you really get stuck or if things go badly, that's really comforting. I think this is a good tool to use if you're trying something that you think is beyond your skill level. Also, if you want to stretch yourself, but you still want to have a safety line. So yeah, that is this service. Super cool that it's free and it just comes with you buying one of the patterns. So yeah, I am going to apply this. I did have some frustration with keeping the pleats in place. And they had it in the written instructions too, so I definitely just should have done that, but I'm definitely going to take their advice and do a basting stitch to keep these all in place while I sew it together. That will make this so much easier, especially with this kind of finicky velvet fabric. So awesome. Hope that helps you guys too. And now I'm going to finish up this dress. I am one task away here, so I am super excited. Thank you so much to Mau Patterns and Sewing Partner for partnering with me on this video. I really like what they're offering, and I thought you guys would too, which is why I was really excited to work with them. I hope that this video helped you discover a new trick or a new place to buy patterns or a new specific pattern that you want to make, and that it was useful for you. And if nothing else, I hope you enjoyed watching me make this dress because I have just been so excited this whole time. So now please enjoy my final result. Comment down below if you would also make this dress. Make sure to use my 25% off discount code. If you do, that code is CaitMakes, and I'll have everything linked down below. And yeah, make sure to like and subscribe if you guys enjoyed this video. I would love to have you around here more often. Thank you also to the 719 studio, which is the studio that I'm sitting in right now. It's owned by one of my very close friends. If you guys are in the LA area, make sure to book with them. They have multiple incredible spaces if you need any sort of photography or videography or anything like that. I hope you guys have a wonderful day and a wonderful week, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!